What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of the fiery 10th studio album Kamikaze by Detroit rapper Eminem. This comes less than a year after the release of his 9th album, Revival. That one was pretty much panned worldwide, including by myself. It was an album that I couldn't stand, but after hearing the Chloroseptic remix that came out in January of this year, I knew that we might be getting some other things in the near future. I just didn't maybe expect it this soon, but here we are at Kamikaze. I spent much of my teenage years absolutely loving Eminem's music. I spent many of my days listening to records like the Marshall Mathers LP, even going as far back as Infinite, obviously playing the Greatest Hits CD that stayed in rotation pretty frequently, so yes, I am a big Eminem fan. But I also kinda called it like it was with the last record, Revival. I thought it was terrible, and my opinion hasn't changed as of about a year after its release. I was excited to see how he would bounce back from this though, after, like I said, the Chloroseptic remix came out, and I loved his verse there, and then I saw him perform for the first time ever for myself at Boston Calling this year, and it was a set to remember. I thought he was fantastic up on stage, so much inertia, so much energy and passion behind him. It was clear that maybe the Revival thing was just needed for him to get back on track. Kamikaze as an album overall exists in the first place because of the fallout of Revival, the rejection from his peers, from online reviewers, reactors, including possibly myself, I was in there, and also fellow rappers in the music community, people just dissing him, clowning him, just throwing punches wherever they could, and he became the punching bag. People should have known that M was only going to take so many punches before he started swinging back, and the Chloroseptic remix was just the first of those. Kamikaze is much more tightly woven and intense. Whether it's aggression, defeat, or even a comeback spirit, I feel like Eminem remains consistent throughout. The project was executively produced by Dr. Dre, the man that essentially put Eminem on the map, which is great to see, and of course M himself. And all throughout, I feel like their touches, their behind-the-scenes direction with all of the other producers, all of the sampling, interpolation of many popular rap songs, it was great, and maybe he needed that failure to get that fire back in his eyes. Eminem takes aim at many critics and rappers especially, name-checking and even mimicking flows of Migos, Blackboy JB, Drake, and more, going as far as getting Tay Keith to produce a look-alive sound-alike called Not Alike. Symmetrical production keeps things in line, but of course, I mainly find myself focusing on Eminem's fiery, unavoidable presence on this album. Pretty much the opposite of the problems I had with Revival, where I felt like the lyrics were nothing to write home about, or even the punchlines, everything like that, and so I had to fall back on the music. Whereas on this album, Kamikaze, I feel like the music is more background, and obviously I'm honing in on what M has to say. What makes this album work? What are the detractors? What are the positives and the negatives here? Well, the first thing that I have to compliment about this album is the fact that it is just 13 songs, 45 minutes. It's not just playing into the 25 song, a couple of hour long projects that many rappers are putting out. It just goes down in not a smooth sense, but just it gets you fired up, and then it leaves you with an intensity to want to play it again. There's both explosiveness that really ruptures all throughout this album, but also some vulnerability and some consequences that play out. It shows us that yes, he's human, and Revival was supposed to do that, but I feel like Kamikaze is the album that actually makes me believe it. I know that as he responds to critics, haters, fans, whoever else on this album, many people are just gonna clown him once again and say, oh, this old man's here yelling at the clouds. Oh, look at him being so silly. But honestly, as he projects, as he raps his ass off on this record, I feel like he's running miles around just so many people in terms of like lapping them over and over and over again. He could leave other people in the dust, and this record only further proves that he still has it. Sure, some of the hooks on this album really don't land. There's a couple of tracks that I'll talk about when we get to the track list breakdown that really aren't getting the job done, but for the most part, despite a few questionable bars or even a few corny ones, I just don't know that there are that many things that I would say make this album get dragged down. I think that through and through, Eminem pretty much proves himself, and for the most part, we are getting the best version of Eminem that we've had in a long time. I feel like he kind of mixes together elements of like the Marshall Mathers LP too, but also some of the hunger and that fire from those early albums. The album opens up on the astounding The Ringer, and this song, honestly, the first 30 seconds, the first minute, pretty much better than anything on Revival. This is what I was looking for from an aging artist that was going out and still having something to him, not just, I don't know, giving us mixed treats over and over again. I feel like he's definitely been a bit inconsistent in the 2010s, and this album just sees him, even this track sees him just punching so hard, and all of the punches are landing. This song is pretty much flawless. What an ace that he's pulled out right away for us. He name checks many rappers, goes off on tons of people, his flow gets fast, and it's not just the fact that he has a quick flow all throughout this album, it's that he's actually packing things in there. He's actually saying lots of really potent shit, and it hits even harder because he's not just mumbling, saying random things and just not having any kind of idea to the album or anything behind it. He's actually swinging with tenacity and meaning. Already right off the bat, Eminem has once again proved that he's not always for the faint of heart or for the super sensitive, somebody that's going to get offended over him calling something out, saying things. He really hasn't changed all that much in his 20 years in the sense that yes, he's grown and matured in some ways in his songwriting and different techniques, but if people go after him, then he often swings back very hard. And it puts you in a weird place because on The Greatest and obviously The Ringer, I feel like both of those tracks open up this album with such a vivacious, angry spirit, but it's also because people came after him and almost expect him not to come back. And when he does come back, as the skits later kind of referred to, it's kind of like, oh, you responded. Oh, look at you. You're just an angry, pathetic, sad, washed up old man whose career is over. And it's like, come on, that's not fair at all. He can't respond to people at all, not even on Twitter, on social media. He's actually going after them in his music and his songs, and instead of people subtly dissing him, he's striking back and just pouncing like a puma all over these other rappers. So I feel like both of the opening moments here, the one that I already talked about, The Ringer, and Greatest, which is a fast-worded flex to those that doubted his abilities, it's really just impressive through and through, down to the production from Mike Will Made It, who once again killed it by splicing together these heavy synth tones and the way that they hit with the electric guitar. It's just a really nice way that they come together. I also really love the line that kicks off the second verse in Greatest, where he talks about these rappers that maybe have sold 10 million albums, but they actually had 10 million albums, which would mean that they only sold like one copy of each, referring to the fact that so many of these trap rappers, these SoundCloud rappers, are putting out mixtapes, everything else, album bombs, just constantly, and he's talking about whatever happened to, I don't know, quality over quantity. Now, I'm not going to be the one to sit down and nitpick every single line. I'll leave that to other people who analyze lyrics a lot more. Many of them do stick with me, resonate with me, but I'm just going to give a general overview as we move into the next track, Lucky You, which features fellow rapper Joyce Lucas. You might know him for his viral hit, I'm Not Racist, which definitely gained a lot of attention, and deservedly so. I think that Lucas is extremely talented, and to see both of their lightning quick pounces on this track and their flows and just their sheer ability and competence as musicians, as MCs, I think it truly comes across on this track, and the meshing of the two styles is fantastic. Both of the rappers lyrically gun down things like the Grammys and the fact that the awards are rigged and everything like that. Eminem touches on that later in the album too, and then Eminem in particular once again doubles down on the face-tatted mumble rappers, everybody who's out there just doing things except they're stealing from other people like Lil Wayne, as he points out here, to Lil Xan, Lil Pump, and everybody else with the face tats and the Lil in the name. The skits on the album are actually really funny. Paul and then M Calls Paul are both kind of clever in the sense that Paul Rosenberg, his longtime manager, somebody that's appeared in numerous skits in the past, basically warning Eminem not to do these things. Oh, you're gonna stir up controversy. And if you don't know, Eminem kind of thrives on controversy, and you can call that as shallow as you want, but really, we're all trying to stir up something, and Eminem's way isn't broke, so why fix it? Paul Rosenberg essentially says, "Are you really gonna go after everyone that dissed Revival? Is that really the best idea? What's gonna happen next?" Then you respond to people on the next album where they don't like Kamikaze, and then after the track Normal, Eminem calls him back and he's like, "Hey, that's not what I'm gonna do," but also in a humorous way, he talks about the fact that he's going after somebody who wrote for Yahoo and he found out where he lived, and he was talking about how he fucked up the understanding of one of his songs and about how so many things just went over people's heads. I just thought it was really funny, and honestly, it was kind of beating other people to the punch, so it was a necessary addition to the album. In between those skits, we have the first track that really swerves off of the tactic of gunning down other rappers and critics, other people like that, and we have a song called Normal that talks about Eminem's relationships, and just the fact that he can't seem to find somebody normal, quote unquote, in the sense that he's tired of looking at these women that just do certain things or have ideas or ways of living that he just can't understand or get behind because the world has changed so much in the past 20 years. I've intentionally stayed away from looking at other reviews as I normally do, but also a lot of fan comments just because I didn't want other people to weigh in on how I genuinely feel about these tracks, and honestly, I'm really loving the song Normal. It's something that sees him switching up the flow, the pacing, the production here is impeccable once again, I really like that, and even though his flow might be a little bit hard for some people to get behind, perhaps a little bit cheesy to some fans, I personally actually really do enjoy his flow and just the return of the old Shady in a way. Crossing on to the next song, Stepping Stone, we have an emotional and impactful goodbye from Eminem referring to his rap group from the early 2000s that saw so much success worldwide, D12. You probably know them for hits like Purple Pills. I was introduced to them and definitely loved much of their music, and I really can't say that I go back to them all that much, at least at this point, just because if I want to listen to Eminem, I generally go to his solo albums, and he kind of talks about on this track on how he felt the burden to lift up all the other members, help them get started on their solo careers that never really landed. The chorus here will definitely remind you of a better version of River featuring Ed Sheeran on Revival. I honestly didn't hate that song like so many people did, but for me personally, this does feel like an improvement over that and a similar sentiment that's delivered, except a totally different subject matter. I don't really care for the flow at the end of the track though, not at the very tail end, but right before that, he just kind of has this up and down flow that sticks, and it stays there like a magnet suspended in the air for like 30 seconds, and it just aggravates me. Other than that though, really do enjoy the song. The Block Boy JB mimic Not Alike featuring Royce to 5'9" copies the flows of both Migos and Drake to hilarious results. There's a sick beat change on this song that comes about the midpoint, and I also really do love the whole triplet thing that Migos do in the way that M mocks it by just having all of these nonsensical words from iPod to K-Fed to IHOP, just saying things that kind of sound good on a track but really have no meaning whatsoever. He mocks the fact that rap doesn't really have a backbone anymore or really any real personality or storytelling ability. He also pretty much grabs fellow rapper MGK by the throat and shakes him violently, as he pretty much, as the kids would say, bodied him on this song. He buries MGK, who made comments in the past about his daughter Haley being hot, everything like that. Eminem, he's pretty protective of his daughters, and he didn't much care for that. So on this song, he goes after him full throttle and just breaks him down into pieces. And honestly, it's like watching glass shatter in slow motion. It's amazing. Kamikaze, the title track here, sees Eminem talking about how he's just an F-15, basically going and smashing into everything. After hearing and seeing the reception to his last album, he is torn up but also angry. He admits on this album that he took an L with it, and I feel like that's kind of a big thing for him to do. Maybe he doesn't necessarily feel like the album is a total loss, he feels like it's slept on, as he alludes to later, but he actually kind of feels like, okay, I took the L here overall, but how do I bounce back? Something like Kamikaze going on the attack, that is how he does it. It has kind of a quirky, fast-moving beat that interpolates his own song Fact that is pretty much universally hated by including me, Eminem, so many others. It's a bad song. Pretty much everybody knows that Fact sucks, but he brings it into this song and manages to make it work. Being catchy, but also light and quick on its feet, it's like somebody in the boxing ring knocking somebody out in the first round. Justin Vernon, aka Bon Iver, assists on the next song titled Fall. This is the one that's gaining a lot of attention for the many disses that are really called out here, and the most notable of those is the Tyler the Creator incident. Now, Tyler definitely in the past has worshipped Eminem, said he's pretty much his favorite rapper. He even started Odd Future, which was kind of reminiscent of D12. And on Tyler's last album, Scumfuck Flower Boy, he pretty much kind of alluded to the fact that he's either bisexual, possibly gay, and he even in the past has called himself the F word. You know what I'm talking about, it's not fuck. Both Eminem and Tyler the Creator have played exaggerated versions of themselves many times. Eminem being Slim Shady and Tyler the Creator having this awful character that popped up in the past on some of his albums like Goblin, where he notoriously said the F word so many times. I think he broke the record for saying that the most times on an album. And honestly, it was something that was so off-putting to me because he was constantly saying this word, this slur that is taken to heart by so many people over and over again that I just couldn't deal with it. Of course, on Kamikaze, it's said by Eminem himself after he goes after Tyler the Creator, so many people are seeing that as a homophobic slur against Tyler. We'll have to see how Tyler responds, but I just don't feel like it's gonna go down the way that you think it does, so maybe listen to the context in which it's used before you just lash out. What do I know though? It's up to you what music you decide to listen to, and if you don't want to listen to it, you don't want to support it, then it's that easy. There's the door. Anyways, once again, this is an incredible track that really just sees him flexing at this point, showing off his lyrical poise and prowess, being tactful, being playful, and just really using so many clever punchlines to just really strike down those who were fighting against him or just saying negative things for the sake of bandwagoning, just jumping on and joining the hate train. Bon Iver's singing on this song was unexpectedly gorgeous. I think that he absolutely makes this song because yes, Eminem is doing his thing, but I do feel like there was a hook presence missing throughout much of the album. This song provides that clarity for me with the opening and closing of the song. Unfortunately, after Fall, Eminem does stumble. After saying that he wasn't falling and wasn't going down, he makes the two worst songs on the album in the form of Nice Guy and Good Guy featuring singer Jessie Reyez. And both of those tracks just leave me thinking, why? Why were these included on the album? Because Nice Guy and Good Guy are bad guy. In all seriousness, listening to both of these songs is kind of a chore. I find myself already skipping over them, leaving them behind, and cutting them out of the track listing would probably improve the score of this album by at least a half a point. Hey, they're here though. Eminem decided to include them for whatever reason, so let's listen to Eminem lament his recent relationships and the fallout of some of his past ones, most notably probably Kim. And if you're an Eminem fan, you know Kim. If you don't, I don't have time to explain it, so let's just move on to the final song, Venom. If you're a fan of Marvel, comic books, or just superheroes in general, you're probably well aware of the fact that the Venom film is coming out very soon, and of course this track is of the same name, Venom, and I love that they got M for this track. The hook and refrain is actually really sticky in the sense that it gets molded into your head. Venom, Venom, it's just spitting so viciously, but also it doesn't feel like a cheap cop-out that so many film songs have. So the final report on Kamikaze by rapper Eminem. It's a good album. It's a very good comeback, and while many people are just going to find reasons to tear it apart or nitpick it, once you get down to the nitty-gritty, to the technical stuff, to the production, to the lyrics, to the flows, everything like that, it's hard to critique or tear apart too much of this record because Eminem is doing what M does best. And for me personally, I'm loving the majority of this record. It is getting a strong 4 out of 5. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I am sure this is going to be one that people have a lot of things to say about. Maybe that's positive, maybe that's negative. Anyways, sound off down below. Don't forget to drop a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on future uploads, everything music related. And if you want to, support me on Patreon at the top link down below to help videos like this keep coming. The direct link for my Patreon is over here in the corner of the screen in this annotation. If you want to see my thoughts on Revival, that bad album, then tap right here. I'm excited to have Eminem back in good fashion. If you want to see another recent rap review, then tap here. Socials in the description, and I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.